quarterly newsletter covering ongoing activities and historical presentations. Go to sfhistory.org and discover the San Francisco Historical Society, giving our history a great future. Become a member today.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM at HD1 San Francisco. An Odyssey station.
Good morning, Diarrhea!
It's time to wake up. It's 5, and we're live.
Oh, is this thing on? I don't care. I want him to hear.
This is the Pregame Show, your early morning shot of sports on 95.7 The Game. Come on!
Oh, yes. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Pregame Show. I'm your host this morning, Joe Spadoni, and we have an awful lot to get into. Not a lot of time to do it. We're going to jump right in. 888-957-9570 is the number if you would like to get involved. Call or text 888-957-9570, Xfinity mobile text line. If you would like to hop on via Twitch or YouTube, that is available to you. We are live and streaming. Hello, how y'all doing? Just search 957 The Game YouTube. Click it there, subscribe, and you got all your 95.7 The Game coverage all the time. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Spadoni_Joe. Give me a follow there. Man, what a night. On a Tuesday in March, might have been the most exciting baseball game I have seen. Man, might be ever. I might say that right now. You can say, oh, Spadoni. World Series so much bigger than the World Baseball Classic final. Yeah, I don't know. The amount of people that were hyped up for that Trout and Ohtani matchup that possibly could happen, we didn't even know if it could happen. We knew Ohtani wasn't going to start. He would have been in some sort of relief or closer type role. And that doesn't mean that Trout would be up or due up. And it just so happened that last night it came to fruition. Trout v. Ohtani, teammates with the Los Angeles Angels, two of the greatest, if not the greatest players in the game of baseball right now, and two of the greatest of all time when it's all said and done. Mike Trout, already top 10 player of all time. In my book, I think Shohei Ohtani, if he is on this trajectory and on this path, he is absolutely on that same path, top 10 all time. I'm already ready to say it. It might be heresy. It might be lunacy. That's not a word. It might be just flat out heresy to say this, especially here in the Bay Area when you got guys like Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, Ricky Henderson. I understand all that. Shohei Ohtani, when it's all said and done, and it might already be all said and done, it could be this 2 or 3 year stretch that he's on, he is the greatest baseball player I have ever seen play the game. Now, I know that limits it. I haven't seen Willie Mays. Haven't seen Babe Ruth. I haven't seen all these. I know what I see right now is the most special thing in the history of baseball. A guy that comes in relief. He's a starter, by the way. Shohei Ohtani is a starter. And he comes in a relief role. And you heard John Smoltz on the broadcast last night. By the way, kind of a snoozer of a broadcast. Smoltzy, not doing it for me. Joe Davis, God bless him. Feel like he's only feeding off the energy of his color analyst. And yikes. But John Smoltz did make the point. It's like, it's not easy coming in from being a starter and going in straight into a closer role. And that's what Shohei Ohtani did last night. And he's not going up against scrubs. Say what you will about the USA pitching during the World Baseball Classic, and it was bad. We didn't have our best and the brightest. Let's just say that. I mean, I heard some of the guys. Jason Adam. Yikes. But say what you will about that. Our lineup was stacked. Leading off was Jeff McNeil. He led the National League in batting last year. Guy gets on base. He's an on-base machine. He has a leadoff walk. Hell of a take he had. Shohei, 99, right below the strike zone there. Hell of a take from McNeil. Hell of a pitch from Ohtani. So they get on. And then you got Mookie Betts. Two-time World Series champion. One of the best in the game. The swag. You love to hate him around here because he's a Dodger, but he's a hell of a player. Double play. And then it all comes down to this. Mike Trout v. Shohei Ohtani. the teammates for the Los Angeles Angels. Mike Trout, the greatest player in the last decade at least in Major League Baseball. Multiple-time MVP. He's going to break a bunch of records. Greatest Angel of all time. Going up against his teammate, the Phenom. The next Babe Ruth. And you heard it on the broadcast, Joe Davis. He's better than Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth only did it for a couple seasons, not the level that Shohei Ohtani's doing it. Shohei should have won back-to-back MVPs, by the way. Aaron Judge winning it over him is a joke. Oh, because he broke some AL record? Please. The record's been broken for a while by Sosa, McGuire, and Bonds. There was no record. Aaron Judge throwing 101 miles an hour heat, paint, and also winning games from the mound? I don't think so. But the moment came last night, and Dave Fleming was on the call for MLB Network, and he did a great job, by the way. I was trying to find the feed. I guess it was like the international feed, and it was him and Yonder Alonso, and I just couldn't. I guess if I'm in America, I probably can't find the international feed. If I was on YouTube, I probably could have, but it is what it is. I have 2 kids. I'm not invested that much in the play-by-play calling, but I was hearing all the highlights via Twitter, and Dave Fleming calling that final strike, and here's how it sounded.
He throws. Trout strikes out swinging. Ohtani and Japan celebrate a World Baseball Classic championship.
That was a moment I'll never forget. Trout v. Ohtani. It was USA versus Japan. Both of the best players representing our respective countries going up against it in a winner-take-all scenario, and 2 outs, a home run ties it scenario. And 3 of the runs that were scored last night were all home runs. It was only 3-1. It was a low-scoring game. Check that, 3-2, Kyle Schwarber. There was 4 solo home runs yesterday. 3, 4, 4. Doing my math here, 5 a.m. Get with us, Spadoni. By the way, if you're just getting off work, getting ready for work, please be safe out there. A lot of fallen trees. There was a car that was in an accident heading over towards the SF on the Bay Bridge. Little delays there, so please be safe. Don't be speeding out there. Don't be riding anyone's bumper. Just don't be driving aggressive out there, folks. A lot of wind, a lot of rain. Scary winds last night. So many trees falling down. Luckily, there's one right in front of my house. That did not fall down. A lot of the branches did. A lot of my neighbors' recycling bins going all over the place. I'm not cleaning that up. But it was wild out there, so please be safe. There's 70-mile-an-hour gusts at the Oakland airport. My God. Wild, wild, wild stuff. That was a Pineapple Express. They were saying that was the term that was going to be used. Not an atmospheric river. It was upgraded to a Pineapple Express. I saw what it was last night. It was pretty wild. I also saw what was happening down in Miami for the World Baseball Classic. That was the game, not of the century, because let's relax. But that was at least one of the best games I've ever seen. Just given the stake, given what was at stake, I should say, given what was happening between Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, given what was at stake for the country of Japan. It feels like there has been a little changing of the guard, because we used to always think like the cream of the crop as far as international players was always Cuba. Like you get all these guys, the Yoenis Cespedes, the Puigs, the Luis Roberts, the Yohan Moncadas, all these young phenom type players were always coming out of Cuba. Well, did you watch the pitching from Japan during this World Baseball Classic, and specifically last night? Are you kidding me? Just gas, every single one of them. I was like I was comparing the pitching staffs between USA and Japan. USA was like the 2022 Oakland Athletics, and Japan was like the 27 Yankees. I was like, oh my God. Now I get it. The 2022 Oakland Athletics pitching staff, if they were back in 1920s, would probably shove. But you get my point. It was just night and day between not having our all-stars. Like, the only players that were like legit all-stars and setup guys and relief guys were Devin Williams and Ryan Presley. Ryan Presley didn't even get to pitch, the closer for the World Baseball Classic and the closer for the Houston Astros. Devin Williams, the airbender, some like to call him, setup guy for Milwaukee Brewers. He's legit. But other than that, Merrill Kelly, okay. Solid. I had him in fantasy last year. Good player for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Doesn't really strike fear into your heart. Not quite the Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander types. And I understand. There's always going to be some sort of players making buku amounts of money, older players that don't want to be participating in it, trying to shy away from the injury front. I understand. But when you see what Japan threw out there and the gas and the nastiness with some of those pitches, makes you a little envious that we didn't put up some of our best and the brightest as it pertains to the pitching front. 888-957-9570. Brandon Cadiz on the YouTube. He was disappointed he couldn't watch because the power went out. Yeah, might have flickered a couple times. Again, that wind was gnarly. The wind was brutal. I can handle rain. It's the wind that I can't stand. Cannot stand the wind. It was freezing in my house. We're still getting my gas heater fixed. Long story through the warranty company and all that sort of stuff. They finally shipped it. Permits. Long story short, going to be out $1,500 to get a new heater in the house. So we're having some space heaters, and it's just, don't get me started. Don't get me started. Not good. Hamza, Spadoni just can't help himself not talk about baseball, most boring sport in America. Hamza, you're tripping, dude. If you were on the timeline yesterday, if you were just following along what was happening, there was nothing boring about what took place last night. That was the most exciting action in baseball in quite some time. And I cannot wait for the Major League Baseball season. That was a primer, my folks. And it's going to be even better because we're not going to have time in between pitches. And not like last night, I was clamoring for the pitch clock. Like, I'm not like, it was a big game. And it wasn't like people were taking forever in between pitches. Although that Schwarber at bat against Darvish was sick. That was fun. You just knew Schwarber was taking him deep there. He took him deep on the the right field foul line at least like 4 or 5 times in that at bat. I was like, oh God, he's serving up a meatball here. And sure enough, Darvish, A's fans know all about him. The A's specifically killed Darvish during his time as a Texas Ranger. And Schwarber just absolutely annihilated that ball to right center field. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. 209, question here. Just tuned in, Joe. Now let's get to work. Keep up the good work. I'll be here listening. What was the question? You just said, oh, your name's just Q. Excuse me, Q here. 209 from the Xfinity Mobile text line. Thought that stood for question. Q. Shout out Star Trek. The omnipotent one, Q. For all those nerds out there. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. The MVP, though, and yes, Shohei Ohtani got the MVP of the game and all that sort. The real MVP of the whole thing, right, was Trey Turner for USA. My God. He did it again, folks. Last night, top of the second.
2-1 pitch. Turner hits another one down the left field line. He's done it again. It's gone!
Once again, Dave Fleming on the call for MLB Network. Trey Turner. Thank God that guy's out of the NL West, right? We were talking in the chat in the morning. Rose Bonte's like, I'm so happy he's not a Dodger anymore. So happy the Dodgers didn't decide to pay him, but Sam Lubman with the great retort. Yeah, but they just saved all that money to pay Shohei Ohtani, probably. That'd be tough. Shan's he's nodding his head in approval over there in disgust, actually. Man. Brandon Cadiz, was that Q from Impractical Jokers? I don't know. It was just some guy named Q. Thought it was a question. I respect it. 510 Xfinity Mobile text line. You could not ask for a better matchup than with Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout to end the game. That was so sick. I jokingly, well, I don't know if it's a joke, actually, said the loser of that at-bat has to stay with the Los Angeles Angels the rest of his career. Sorry, Mikey. You're stuck, man. I also texted the chat. I was like, there's a possibility for Mike Trout. That's the most meaningful at-bat of his career. Just think about that for a second. One of the greatest players in the history of baseball, Mike Trout, there is a chance that is the most meaningful at-bat in his career. Now, he could go on later in his career, journeyman type towards the end there, just signing like a 1-year deal with like a stacked team. I get that. It's a possibility. But at that stage of his career and where he's at right now in his career, and he's still a baller, going up against one of the biggest names, not just in baseball, but in just sports and global sports, and Shohei Ohtani. They were having the conversation yesterday, Shasky and Bonte, about who's the bigger star, Giannis or Shohei. It's Giannis, just because the brand of basketball is it reaches a little bit more than baseball does. And it reaches a certain demographic more than baseball does. Let's just be honest. The African-American demographic, the European demographic, it's just not there for baseball. Not yet. World Baseball Classic is helping spread the game. I think if you have games like you had last night, that is a perfect opportunity to spread the game of baseball around to the world. Perfect. You could not ask for better stars to be in there as it pertains to Mookie Betts, Goldschmidt, Trout, I already mentioned, Jeff McNeil, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, all these dudes. Yeah, you would like some of the pitchers to be on there as well. That's what was kind of so cool about Japan, seeing all these young stars who aren't quite. Sam was explaining it to me yesterday. Sam Lubman, a producer extraordinaire for the Morning Roast and Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys, #1 Giants fan here in the Bay Area and at the station. He was explaining to me all the stuff as it pertains to Japanese players. I was like, why can't the USA just sign some of these guys right now? Well, they don't want them poaching, so they have these contracts in place where they have to have a minimum of 5 years or 6 years. That's why you don't see guys like Shohei or Yu Darvish come into the league until they're 26, 27. I was like, that makes sense. So you're going to start seeing some of these guys, not quite yet, and Bob Nightingale joined the guys yesterday, and he was explaining the same thing. You're going to start seeing these guys maybe 2025, 2026. You'll start seeing some of these phenoms. And it's just, again, the night and day difference between our pitchers and Japanese pitchers last night as it pertains to the bullpen action. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. Good morning, El Guero. Appreciate you chiming in. James, good morning, my man. Hamza, you wake up this early to troll. It's all right. All are welcome. 209, Xfinity Mobile text line. Hey, Joe, it's Q. My guy, Q. We're besties now. Hell of a game last night. Japan killed it. Maybe next time around, the USA big names will think twice about coming on and competing with the big event. Yeah, that's the thing. I wasn't super invested to the point where I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm very distraught that the USA did win. No, it sucks. You would like to win. I'm patriotic. I want my teams to win all the time. World Cup, World Baseball Classic, any of that. It's pride. It's America's pastime. Hell yeah, I want my team to win. It's like whenever England, who feels like they invented the sport, lose in the Euros or the World Cup, or in Brazil loses. Yeah, you want to win if you feel like you're the best. Do I still think USA is the mecca of baseball and has all the best talent? Yes. American players still, I think, are top to bottom the cream of the crop. But Japanese is closing, man. You saw some of those players last night. I said it earlier, the top of the hour, top of the show. They've definitely surpassed Cuba as the best international collection of talent. That's absolutely true. What these guys are doing over there, it's just filthy. Straight filth. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. Seems like the other countries brought their A-listers and USA just had a handful from the Xfinity Mobile text line. Yeah, again, it's always going to be like that. I think, and you've heard from some of these players like Trey Turner, from Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, they would much rather have this as a tune-up than spring training. I think this is a way better barometer of what you're going to see during an actual MLB season. Going up against guys like this that you may have never seen before, the kind of stuff they're throwing, the type of lineups you're going to see. This is a way better primer for a lot of these guys who are just either pitching or hitting than what they're going to see in spring training. So on that front, I totally get why a lot of these guys would want to do it. But on the flip side, there's money at stake. A lot of these owners shell out a lot of money. There's a lot of Edwin Diaz type stuff. That was a freak incident. I got it. Celebration, all that sort of stuff. But I'm sure the Houston Astros aren't very happy with what happened to Altuve. He got hurt for Venezuela. He's going to be out for at least 8 weeks, I think, with a broken thumb. So yes, that's not fun, but that happens. See, that happens everywhere. That could have easily happened in spring training, right? The notion that getting hurt in the World Baseball Classic is somehow different than getting hurt in spring training is just ludicrous to me. I understand the amount of at-bats might be different, but come on. You want these guys to be playing their top form at the start of the season, right? Then going up against the best is the best way to do that. It's not even close, in my opinion. Not even close. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. We'll get into a little bit of the 49ers interesting news coming out of Pittsburgh yesterday. Why a former two-time Super Bowl champion may have been a 49ers quarterback last season. I'll explain more of that in the coming moments. 888-957-9570. Also, the Golden State Warriors, they're back in action tonight against the Dallas Mavericks, and we'll have all that coverage right here on 95.7 The Game, starting with Warriors Live at 3:30. Getting you ready for that game. John Dickinson, before tossing over, the great Tim Roy will be on the call with Jim Barnett at 5:30 tip-off. Cannot wait for that game. Check that at 4:30 tip-off. Warriors Live 3:30. Again, all that coverage right here on 95.7 The Game. Big game, obviously. All these games are huge. 9 games left in the season. Everyone's a must-win. Dallas Mavericks, though, specifically, they're only a half game back. We're going to see what's going on with Luka and Kyrie. Still questionable, I think. Last time I saw Kyrie left that game and that loss against the Memphis Grizzlies in a walking boot. So we shall see about that and his availability. That would be a huge loss. Obviously, he was huge against the Warriors as a Brooklyn Net this year when that team was kind of just in shambles. There was no Kevin Durant, but it was Kyrie Irving, and he came out and he did his thing. So if he was out tonight, it'd be a huge loss. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. Chuck Cooperstein, the Dallas radio voice, actually joined the Morning Roast yesterday, and he had an interesting notion, an interesting thought. The Warriors being respected, but not feared anymore. Here's what he had to say.
I think teams will respect them. I don't think teams fear them. I just don't see it. I mean, again, you play the entire season, and this is 2022, 2023. It's not 2016 or 2018, anymore. And these guys are older. Sure, there are no more back-to-backs to worry about and things like that. Look, they're like everybody else in the Western Conference. Everybody has flaws. The question is who can mask their flaws better. And the Warriors this year, to me, have had a harder time masking their flaws than most.
I think that was well said. And once it's playoff time, I do think there is a little at the back of some of these opponents' heads like, oh, this is Steph Curry. This is Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. These are 4-time champions. So maybe not right now, but come playoff time and it's a series and it's a do or die, and you're up in a series 3-2 against the defending world champions, and it's fourth quarter, and you have a 5-point lead with 2 minutes to go. I think they'll start, there's some fear in there. There's some fear in there. You know what? It's really hard to kill a dynasty or a defending champion. It's really hard to do that. And I know it feels like this is the last dance and this is the last hurrah for the Golden State Warriors. But until I see it, and I think this is the mindset for a lot of fans, this is why there's a lot of pushback, I think, with this whole notion that they're done, because you just refuse to believe it as a fan. And I understand. You refuse to believe it until it happens. Well, I think that's my mindset as well. I'm not here to say that they're done. They're just in a very interesting spot where I wouldn't be shocked if they lost in a play-in game. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost in the first round series. I wouldn't be shocked if they won the whole thing. Now, as it pertains to Andrew Wiggins, he's missing, obviously, that absence. That would be a huge, huge task to do it without him. But would it be the craziest thing I've ever seen? No. You have 3 future Hall of Famers. 4th, if you want to put Iguodala. By the way, he's going to be reevaluated. I think I saw 4 weeks after surgery. So we shall see about his availability. Easy enough for me to say. So anytime you have 3 Hall of Famers, let alone maybe 4 on your team, I give you a chance. 888-957-9570. Continue to talk about the World Baseball Classic. Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout. Just a huge matchup in the game of baseball and huge for the sport. Japan versus USA, the 2 best countries at that game going up against it. Body blows. You got the Turner home run. You got Schwarber homering. You got Shohei coming on in relief, going back and forth from the bullpen, having a hustle play down the line, just beating it out, and then going back to the bullpen. This guy's unreal. And I said it. I think I'm going to tell my kids, I'm going to tell young Benjamin, I'm going to tell baby Nora, and maybe Benny's going to be able to see him. I'm definitely going to an A's-Angels game next season. Hopefully Ohtani's pitching. But I'm going to tell him, even if it's 2 or 3 years, Shohei Ohtani was the greatest baseball player I had ever saw. I saw Bonds. I saw the Jeter. I saw Mike Trout. I saw all these guys. Clemens. Whatever player or player X you want to put in there from 1997 on. I saw all those guys. Tony Gwynn's, saw him. Ichiro. Seen all of these players. No, I didn't see the Willie Mazes. I didn't see the Pete Roses. I didn't see the Joe DiMaggios. I didn't see the Lou Gehrig's. I didn't see Babe Ruth. What I see now dominates all of those guys because none of them have done it at the level of a Shohei Ohtani. Barry Bonds, hell of a player. Most home runs of all time. A record that may be broken, may not be. A record that some say is tainted. He is the second greatest player I've ever seen. Until Shohei Ohtani showed up. He throws 100 miles an hour and then has a hustle single down the line. Who is doing that? Who's doing that? He comes in for a relief and he just looks like a normal closer. You realize how hard that is? The mental makeup you have to have a closer in a championship game to be a normally a starter. So your routine's already all the way off. Like you're usually going through the motions. First inning, you're a starter, you come on in. It's the ninth inning when you're coming in, do or die situation, 1-run lead against McNeil, Betts, and Trout. 3 pretty damn good players, 3 all-stars, a few MVPs in there, and a few world championships in there. That is not easy. The star power is heavy. And the star power obviously is heavy when it comes to Shohei Ohtani. All the pressure, the weight of the country on your shoulders. Everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone wants to be you. And he lived up to the hype. He lived up to the hype. And the hype of that game, it was massive. And it lived up to it. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. We'll continue to discuss the World Baseball Classic. I want to know your thoughts. Did you watch it? What did you think? Trout v. Ohtani. Am I crazy to say Shohei Ohtani is already the greatest baseball player I have ever seen? Let me know. 888-957-9570. Twitch, YouTube, hit me up on there. Hit me up on Twitter, @Spadoni_Joe. Coming up, why a certain Super Bowl champion nearly became a 49er last year after Jimmy Garoppolo's injury. I'll explain on the other side. This is the pregame show, Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
Hi, welcome to the IKEA Spring Sale.
Hi, I did my spring cleaning, but I still feel I'm missing something.
Don't worry, our spring sale has offers on everything from air purifiers to cabinets, cushion covers to sofas and storage, all to help you start fresh.
Game.
Welcome back to the Pregame Show. Joe Spadoni, 95-7 The Game. Japan takes it home. They defeat USA in the World Baseball Classic final. They win it for the third time. USA spurned yet again in the final, losing to Japan yet again in the final. Tough way to lose. Your best player, Mike Trout, going up against his teammate and best player in the league. I think it was officially a passing of the torch, to me anyways. That's kind of what it symbolized. For so long, Mike Trout was the best player in the league. And he was still damn good last year after missing like a quarter of the season. He still ended up with like almost 40 home runs. This guy's unreal. Absolutely unreal. But what have you seen from Shohei Ohtani the last 2 seasons? I mean, he's the best player in baseball. He's the best player. You can have your Aaron Judge if you want. That's fine. Taking Shohei Ohtani. It's not even close. You're going to see what his contract's going to be next season, too. And Bonte had a good point. He's like, Shohei just made himself a good extra $15 million from last night's performance. And I agree. Hey, got a closer option now, not just a starter. Need him to close? He can do it. He can do anything. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. 707 from the Xfinity Mobile text line. Shout out nice guy Steven Langford for always playing this song during baseball season. Oh, yeah. Nice guy visited from, he's only a couple floors up at KCBS, but he came down last night and, shot the S with all the dudes. It was good to see nice guy. Good vibes. Good pace, as Steiny would say about nice guy Steven Langford. He had a good pace about him. What the hell does that even mean? 888-957-9570. This little story, and we'll get back to the World Baseball Classic, and we'll continue to take your calls and texts on that. 888-957-9570. Again, the Golden State Warriors, they also play tonight. Huge matchup in Dallas against the Mavericks. Not sure the availability of Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving. Still waiting on that. Questionable, I think, is what they were saying. But Warriors Live begins at 3:30 and tip-off at 4:30 with the great Tim Roy and Jim Barnett on the call. 888-957-9570. So, Ben Roethlisberger was out last year. He's officially retired, right? Just taking the year off. Looks like he's done. 2-time Super Bowl champion, defeating the Seattle Seahawks early in his career. And then obviously in one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time, talking about one of the greatest baseball games we saw last night. One of the greatest Super Bowls ever was the Cardinals and the Steelers. And Larry Fitzgerald, James Harrison, Kurt Warner, all those guys. So, Ben Roethlisberger, retired now. Didn't look great. Let's just say it looked pretty bad as his career ended. Was always hurt. Just his arm was dead. Just not great. Old, slow, late. Well, 49ers didn't think he was totally washed up. Let's let Ben explain on 105.9 in Pittsburgh.
You never retired, then unretired, then retired. You know the drill. A lot of quarterbacks have done it. If it's for them, it's for them. But how tempting was it for you ever?
I was really comfortable with my decision. I never wanted to. I think I would say this. Last year, there were some truths to the Niners thing, just in the sense that they were, I think, reaching out for some, just to maybe gauge my interest. And so I had discussions with, and so, that's all. I don't want to sit here and say that I was going or anything like that. They called to gauge interest. Okay. I had conversations with my agent, with my wife, my family, prayed a lot about it. And, I'd be lying if I didn't say there wasn't like a small part of me that was intrigued, like, oh man, I could, I could still do it, like prove to people, right, that I could still play. But at the end of the day, I just can't see myself in anything other than black and gold. And I think that honestly was kind of even though they had a great chance, I think, to win a Super Bowl, it would have been hard for me to go try and win a Super Bowl anywhere else but here. So at the end of the day, it was the smallest little bleep in my heart to go play again.
Well, thank God that didn't happen. We wouldn't have seen Brock Purdy play, right? Like, I don't know if they bring him in and they still try Brock and he's like the backup or whatever, and then Brock still does what he does. But Ben Roethlisberger in the red and gold, I mean, I don't want to state the obvious there, but probably not the best market fit for a guy with his past. I'll just leave it at that. But also, the guy just was so washed. Did you watch that Kansas City Chiefs playoff game when they just annihilated the Pittsburgh Steelers? He was so done. His body, there's all the memes about Ben Roethlisberger with just the ice packs, just everything wrapped around his arm, his shoulder, always completely wrapped up in ice, everything, compression sleeves everywhere. The guy was done. He had nothing left in the tank, and I would rather have had Josh Johnson. Obviously, he got a concussion, he was out for the game, but Ben Roethlisberger wasn't giving you anything that Josh Johnson also wasn't giving you. Like I understand the Kyle Shanahan offense is easily catered to everyone, but Ben Roethlisberger, no. I'm good off that, as the kids would say. I'm good off that. Would you have wanted Ben Roethlisberger on your team, 49er fans? 888-957-9570. Let me know, because it's an easy no for me, but it's not just a me show, it's an us show. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. Ben Roethlisberger, almost a 49er hand. He said it was a little blip in him. I think it was more the Niners just testing the interest. They probably I wouldn't be surprised if they talked to the likes of like a Phillip Rivers as well. But what we saw with Brock Purdy last year makes me feel like they absolutely made the right choice. It sucked how it ended. They absolutely could have won a Super Bowl potentially, but it sucks. We all get that. Wish Brock a speedy recovery. Hopefully he's back to throwing in a few months. That's the diagnosis after the successful surgery on his UCL. So we will wait and see the Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, quarterback love triangle. I don't know what's going on there. It's always something with the quarterback. And Shasky said it in the chat perfectly. He's like, it's always something. We can never have a week without talking about the 49ers quarterback situation. And this week, Ben Roethlisberger tosses his hat into the ring. It's truly unbelievable. But the NFL's just king. They give us a little snippet like that. Do a whole segment on it. Doing it right now. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. YouTube, hit me up there. At Spadoni_Joe on Twitter. And be sure to download that Odyssey app, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not already. Just search in all your favorite app stores. Find Odyssey. Give it a download. Favorite 95.7 The Game, or favorite anything. Could be sports. Could be pop culture. Could be your favorite gossip. What's going on with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio? Those guys still A-listers. What's going on with your favorite politicians or your favorite story in politics right now? Your favorite politicians. It's like it's a draft. Yeah. Drafting Nancy Pelosi. Stop. But hey, if that's what you're into, go ahead. Download that Odyssey app. All your politics and political needs. Weather also. It's crazy out there. Again, drive safe, please. A lot of fallen trees, a lot of debris everywhere. Crazy winds happening in the Bay Area yesterday. 60 plus, 70 plus in some places. So please, again, be safe. There was a overturned big rig on the Bay Bridge yesterday. Made traffic hell for everyone. But just want everyone to be safe. I don't care about the traffic. I just want everyone to please drive safe, drive defensive. Don't be aggressive on those roadways in bad weather. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. Going to get back into the WBC. Let me know, folks. Shohei Ohtani, am I crazy to say he is the greatest baseball player I have ever seen? Is that a crazy thought? From the Xfinity Mobile text line. 510. People will always judge the greatest by the numbers. But if you use the eye test and just look solely at ability, Shohei takes it. He's a bona fide slugger and ace who throws 100 plus with a nasty unhittable slider to go with it. He's one of one. Totally agree. 888-957-9570. Am I crazy to say Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player I've ever seen? Let me know. This is the pregame show with Joe Spadoni. Coming up next, the crossover. Joe Shasky joins me, and I think he's going to think I'm crazy with that statement, and I can't wait to discuss it right here on 95.7 The Game.
Today at 4:30, the Warriors take on the Mavs in the biggest game of the year.
Clay takes it off balance. Three!
Welcome back. Pregame show, Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game. One more segment here before tossing it over to Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky, the morning roast. Sure, they'll have reactions to the World Baseball Classic final. Japan defeating USA to win the gold medal there. USA runners up to Japan yet again in the World Baseball Classic. It's happened before. Man, the way Japan's pitching and producing all these guys is probably going to happen again if we don't bring our best and the brightest as it pertains to the pitching. Lineup was okay, but yeah, the pitching was the big difference last night as you saw Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout, and that was the at-bat of the century so far. I mean, it might be, you can go Gagne Bonds. That was definitely a lot more fun, but just the magnitude and the weight of USA versus Japan, our best against their best, there was just something cool and symbolic about it. I don't know. It was just, it made me kind of fall in love with baseball again. Am I a hopeless romantic? I don't know. It was really, really cool. Really, really cool. I had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to say that I think Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player that I've ever seen. Your thoughts, 888-957-9570, 209 on the Xfinity mobile text line. I'm with you, Joe, about Ohtani. Even when my wife, who was a casual baseball fan, was amazed by his abilities, her words, quote, "What the heck? He can pitch too?" I'm telling you. 408, Xfinity mobile text line. We were talking about Ben Roethlisberger potentially becoming a 49er last segment, and he had a call with the team. They were gauging his interest a little bit, and he wasn't super interested ultimately, but I was like, hell no. 49ers dodged a bullet there. You didn't know what you would have with Brock Purdy if you got Ben Roethlisberger. Now on the 408 in the Xfinity mobile text line said, would you take Cam Newton? As a backup? Sure. But you already have Sam Darnold. So for the Niners, it doesn't make sense, but for another team, sure. Give Cam a shot. I think he's working out at Auburn's pro day yesterday, so good for Cam trying to get back into it. I think his best days are absolutely behind him, but I still think he could be a serviceable backup somewhere. That shoulder, though, on a throwing shoulder, man, it's never easy. Never easy. 805 Xfinity mobile text line. Angels fan here. Ohtani is the one. Going to be very sad to see him signed to the Dodgers next year. I think that's the sentiment that a lot of Giants fans were also feeling last night. They're like, oh, God, can we get him here? Is there any way? And then ultimately, a lot of them are like, yeah, he's going to be a Dodger. Maybe he stays an Angel fan. Come on. Got to have faith. Maybe this is the year the Angels finally break through. It's only been a 9-year drought. Angels sneakily, by the way, they're getting up there in the playoff drought numbers. Who's the biggest playoff drought right now in MLB? I'm trying to think. Angels have got to be up there. Pirates, maybe. Yeah, not the Marlins. They just made it in the bubble year recently. Probably the Pirates. Tigers haven't been in a long time. The Angels were probably that same year. So sneakily getting up there for the Angels. And when you have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani and you're not making the playoffs, yikes. Shohei's at the age where he's like, yeah, I need to get out of here. Mike, I think, is complacent to be there. Like, he's not, I don't think World Series drives him. I know players say that, but if you're choosing to stay in that market and that franchise, it's just, and I say the market, LA, all due respect to the Dodgers, I still think it's a Laker town and it's a USC football town. Dodgers, if they're playing well, yeah, they'll draw. Get the late fan base, the late arriving crowds, all that. There's lots of stuff to do in LA, so you better be winning. That's all I'm saying. And if you're the Angels and you're already at a disadvantage in your own market when it comes to all these other options, yeah. If I'm Shohei, I'm looking over at LA, I'm looking over at San Diego, I'm looking over at New York City. That's how they do business. They'll pay you and they'll try to win. Giants, they're trying. They're trying to get these guys. Listen, I would love if they got Shohei Ohtani because I would like to talk about that every single day. Is it going to happen? We'll see. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. 408 Xfinity mobile text line. Would you pay Ohtani in the 60 to 70 million average? I'd pay that guy $100 million a year. Give him the Cristiano Ronaldo contract. Guy's worth every single penny just on the marketing alone. As Joe Shasky, co-host of the Morning Roast with Bonte Hill, that's coming up in about 50 minutes, joins me now for the crossover. And Joe, just last night was just so cool. The amount of people texting me like, dude, this is just awesome. Like, and what a primer to have the World Baseball Classic just a couple weeks, or what is it, 10 days now before opening day of Major League Baseball. That was awesome.
It was so much fun. I mean, broadcast aside, because I've got my own issues with some of the. Well, John Smoltz. John Smoltz, John Smoltz said at one point, at high school and college, I just don't know who's pitching and hitting. Hey, John, dog. Every high school in America has a guy who's their best pitcher and probably bats third, fourth, or fifth and plays in the field.
He had a Trent Dilfer moment last night. I sent it in the chat. He said, the U.S. has to be built to score more runs than the other team. That's the point of any sport, John.
Horrific.
Come on.
Horrific. But yesterday was a celebration of the sport. The international game, I was listening to you talk about Cuba and all the players that have come from those areas. And there's been some just amazing, whether we're talking, and not just Cuba, because just go
Dominican, Venezuela,
South and Central America. Roberto Clemente is one of the greatest players of all time.
Yes.
His Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, who's on the broadcast last night. There is a litany of great all-time players. Luis Aparicio, you just go right down the list. Juan Marichal here in our own backyard. Shohei Ohtani is one of the great phenoms the game has ever seen. Now, I don't know if he's the best player I've ever seen. That's up for debate, because you look at some of the longevities of the Hank Aaron's and the Willie Mays, say they only played one position. They did it for 25 years. I mean, Stan Musial went to 24 All-Stars. I think Hank Aaron went to 23, right? So, we've got to take a step back and realize that, there's different math equations when it comes to the greatest of all time.
I think eras is the appropriate thing, because, if you put a guy like Shohei back then, they're seeing stuff they've never seen. If you're putting Willie Mays here, I do think he could adjust fine, but there's nuances, absolutely.
But if we're talking like when I watch Mahomes, I feel like I'm watching the height of the quarterback play of all time. Now, maybe there'll be someone after him because of how we get better and more refined, and speed and size and training and all those things get better. I do feel like I'm watching in real time the height of the sport.
Yeah.
Meaning the excellence on both the mound and the excellence at the plate feels like it's about as close to the top as you can get. I would argue Barry had a moment that was better offensively than Shohei, but when you combine the two, it's unbelievable. Because I look at guys like Verlander, is Shohei in the Verlander mold? Verlander's been amazing for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. He had his best season at 40 years old. It's wild.
After Tommy John.
Huh.
No, but you get where I'm going with this, right?
Yes.
Verlander can sit 95 all game and come back and pump 99 when he needs to late in situations. Yeah. Proven champion on the grandest stages.
The most impressive thing I saw last night was coming in a closer opportunity. And credit to Smoltz of this, at least I agreed. It was it is way different coming from a starter.
Come on.
I mean,
it was a
maybe
Bumgarner moment.
It was a Bumgarner type moment, and the adrenaline, and it's not like he's going to go. Jeff McNeil, batting champion in the NL last year. Guy's a baller, always gets on base. Got on base to lead off. That was awesome take, by the way. Right at the balls to take that 99 right at the bottom of the zone. Shohei couldn't believe it, and then Mookie, they get him to a double play, and then you got your buddy. You got the greatest baseball player in the last decade in America.
In time.
That was a moment.
Absolutely.
You got the best in the U.S. going up against the best in Japan.
And look,
it never happens like that either. That doesn't happen. That's so cool.
When you're a kid, when you and little Benny are in the backyard, okay, he's going to be a kid who's dreaming up those scenarios. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. You're going to be the best pitcher of the era, throwing to him. He's going to be Mike Trout in that situation, and he's trying to hit a jack. That's what you live for as a child, and that's what you live for as a sports fan. And so those types of moments, to me, I hug and embrace them. It felt Gagne Bonds-ish.
Yes.
That's what it felt like to me, with more on the line, because that was a regular season game, even though it's Giants-Dodgers.
I think the Bonds and Gagne, just the at-bat itself was more exciting because of the foul-offs, all that sort of stuff.
I don't know. He pumped 100. We could go back and forth.
No, but the moment, I think, was bigger in the at-bat last night.
I'll listen to it.
Just because, again, it's the best of the both countries going at it. The history of between these two, not just the teams, just the countries in general. Coming together, it was just a moment. Everyone's having a good time last night. I didn't feel sad. I want the USA to win. I love my team.
Celebrating the game.
I was that's how I felt afterwards. I'm not going to be pissed after after what I just saw. That was awesome.
You know what I hoped? I hoped all those little leaguers out there that are on the fence, about loving the game or not, were watching that. I don't know if they were. I'm going to ask some of the kids today at batting practice, but did you sit there and did that make you more of a baseball fan? Are you a Shohei fan now? He threw 100 over and over right down the pipe, and then threw a 2.5-foot breaking right to left slider on a 3-2 count.
That was the filthiest pitch of them all.
Brass balls?
Oh my god!
I mean, are you kidding me?
A Trout was just so full about that. He's just well, what are you going to say? And Harold Reynolds was talking about before the game. He's like, yeah, I'd much rather be Shohei in this situation because you can look at a guy pitching all you want until you get in that mound and go up against him.
Different.
And like maybe Trout's done like BP against him or something like that. Way different.
But
Ernie Chavez, real quick, tipping $2. Appreciate you, Ernie, on the YouTube chat. Shasky is about to say Casey Schmidt could hit off Ohtani. Okay. We appreciate Ernie chiming in this early in the morning.
Ernie, God bless you. Ernie. You've jumped the shark.
You've jumped the shark. Hey, Casey would have helped USA last night. At least, God. Some of the situational hitting, like, I understand the Schwarber 3-0. Come on, bro.
But well, here's the thing.
Trey would have been up with the bases loaded.
But this is this era of baseball. So, like, you have to understand, like, Kyle Schwarber, when you put him on the roster, okay, and you have him in that situation, he is up there to hit tanks.
Hit a nuke, by the way, off Darvish.
I know. So,
100% he was doing that after all those fouls. Yeah.
I get where everyone's coming, like old school baseball, but like 3-0, when you're a home run hitter like Schwarber, yeah, I want him swinging out his shoes. Like that's literally why he's on the roster. Now, if it was a different player who has more speed or whatever, yeah, get on first base. Trey Turner's on deck. Like I understand the other side of the baseball equation, but Tony Gwynn said it best. When it's 1-2, the pitcher has earned the right to throw you something in the dirt. When it's 0-2, he's earned that right. When it's 2-0, 3-0, and you're a guy like Schwarber who's all or nothing and is not a contact hitter, not a base runner, you have earned the right to swing through your cheeks and try to hit one into the seats.
Absolutely. Brandon Cadiz, I had posed the question before you got in here, Shasky. I was thinking out loud. I was like, I think the Angels have the longest playoff drought in baseball right now. And sure enough, it's the Angels and the Tigers. 8 years since they've been, or not 8, 9 years now. 2014.
That Marlin one in the COVID
I understand,
year,
but they were good. Like that's fine. I understand. And then they got the Pirates 2015.
Wow.
But the Angels have been bad that long. Wow. Like, can you just think like the A's were good in that time? Then you got the Astros coming around that time. Hell, the Rangers before that. The Mariners now seem like, if I'm an Angels fan, and God bless you if you are, you get to see two of the greatest players in the history of the game. But if Shohei, like, he's gone, right? Like,
yeah, Artie Moreno's holding on to something. Like, Artie Moreno's a moron. He should just trade him right now because he's not coming back.
At least at the deadline, you have to.
You're going to get a sandwich comp pick. Name me one comp pick that's come through and you're like, oh, look at this comp pick. Like, did you know this?
Well, I think people would trade for him at the deadline just so they can have the first rights to try to negotiate with him.
Now imagine if you get an entire season of him. Like, teams would be falling over themselves. Yes. Did you know this? I didn't know this. Did you know that the number 1 overall pick has a less than 50% chance of actually making it to the big leagues?
It's wild. We were talking about that yesterday. Like, that's why I think Bonte, and you guys were out in the garden at Casey Schmidt, that's why a lot of guys are just so, like, just hesitant to say, like, oh, I'm so excited to see this guy, because I don't know if I'm going to.
Well, you don't even see them in spring training.
Exactly. Like, I don't know what these guys look like half the time.
Mark Appel, who retired yesterday, basically, was released, I believe, by the Detroit Tigers, I think was the organization he was with. Maybe it was the Yankees. I forget. But one of the old school teams. He was the number 1 overall pick from the Stanford Cardinal.
Oh, that's right.
He pitched 10 innings in the major leagues.
Yeah.
10 innings.
Yeah.
All right. And he was just released, and it's probably the end of his career. So, like, as we look around, like, prospects, that's why I am, like, as Orne's coming through on Casey Schmidt. Like, I seen this guy do things at spring training. I know it's spring training. Like, I hear you. But Yaz is batting under 100 at spring training.
Yikes.
And I know Yaz sucks. And this only further cements that I'm done with Yaz, and I've been done with Yaz.
I'm not done with Joe Shasky. He's coming up next with Bonte Hill, the Morning Roast, more World Baseball Classic talk, more baseball talk. Just what a moment last night. More Warriors-Mavericks talk. They take on each other tonight. Tip-off at 4:30. Warriors live at 3:30. Right here on 95.7 The Game.
You're listening to